Back, Rebecca Rose, Series Blue, and I'm here to introduce my guest a second time, my dear friend and star sister, healer and intuitive Alisha Brache. Many of you know her. If you haven't become familiar with Alicia's experiences, her work, you could go back and watch the first video that we just did less than a month ago here on the channel. Welcome, Alicia. I'm happy to have you back for round two. I'm sure there might be, a few more rounds to go here with all of these experiences. We're just gently, slowly, bit by bit, unpacking.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you for having me back. I feel very honored to be sitting here with you and being able to feel comfortable in a safe space to openly share and talk about a lot of these things that I think are incredibly helpful for people.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, and I'd said previously, like you've had me on your channel, and it's been, I don't know when we started recording, you interviewing me on your YouTube channel. I think a couple of years ago, probably. We've done a bunch of interviews. And so now I get to kind of, we get to reverse the roles, and with some really like amazingly poignant content based on your experiences in the Secret Space program, which you had just just recently started, I believe, coming forward with. Yeah. It's,
Yeah, I think going back when I started interviewing you and other people, that was a safe place for me at that time to talk about these topics without actually disclosing my
yes.
own experience.
Yeah.
Until you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm ready now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're, I mean, brilliantly poised as an interviewer to kind of like, okay, could I do this sometime? Did I be interviewed? So before we get into that, I just wanted to, a shout out to those of us who have been through the programs, you and I and many others who are actually, have reclaimed our gifts as light workers, seers, intuitives, channels, healers, and so on. And I believe when I reflect on all the people that I've seen in my sessions and so on, and our journeys, that's part of why we're vetted, is because we have, I mean, I believe we all have intuitive gifts, but some of us maybe have a little more amplification of that through the incarnation based on maybe previous experiences and also parallel dimensional experiences through the galactic planes and so on. So I wanted to just give you the floor maybe to speak a little bit about your work. You and I have done sessions for each other, and I would bill you likewise as myself, also an intuitive and a healer, but we work slightly differently. And I just wondered if you want to speak to your work a little bit, because I think that's important here too.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Rebecca. Um, my work is predominantly a few, I talk about it's a fusion of energy-based work to help heal or help support the evolution of people's own ascension pathway. But it's also highly intuitive. So when I work, I blend the energy and the intuitive information in one sort of package as I'm working through. I can speak to, I guess it's an interpreter for, I work as an interpreter for energetics, the unseen, and to bring forth information that is helpful for people where they're at on their journey to help propel them to where their soul is guiding them, in essence. So a
Yeah.
lot of people when they come in, they're like, oh, so they'll ask if they can connect deeper with their team, or if who do I work with directly. I'm like, I work with my higher self
Yeah.
and your higher self, and if anyone pops in, we work with that. But it's
Mm.
yeah, so I guess I started working in the space of energetic realm as a child, and speaking to what you were saying, I think a lot of us that are vetted for these programs is because we potentially have a um, abilities that are quite enhanced, perhaps. Um, as young as I can remember, I was applying hands-on healing to family members and healing the physical body, and that's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing,
yeah,
right? And maybe the capacity to work with energies and to intuit things and to see beyond the visible world is maybe so natural for you. has been for a long time. Um, so, what do you notice any, I'm curious about this, if you notice, as you and I both see what a number of people, if you notice any particular themes that are coming up through sessions.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, you have
Yeah,
something to say to that. I can feel it. Mm.
I notice the themes and the patterns that occur.
Mhm.
So it comes in waves, and at the moment, for the last month or so, what I have been witnessing through sessions is people are getting unplugged from whether it be through the programs in particular. Like I see it as like energy cords or threads that are tying their consciousness into perhaps other realms, um, or other aspects of themselves. Um, it can be for people who may be not so connected to the programs, people who are connected into heavier, denser matrix like
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
programs.
Mhm.
And what I'm noticing is these cords or plugs are just like dropping away. They're coming out because people are disentangling from that sort of frequency bandwidth as we're moving, as I believe, as a collective into a lighter plane of existence. Like the Earth itself is going through this radical evolution, and the species on the planet, not just humans, are kind of lifting and moving into that. So that's one of the main themes that I've seen.
Mm.
The other is people are going through this process of embodying more of their own consciousness. So, what I call a soul walk in upgrade.
Mhm.
And just to be very, very clear, this is not a traditional walk in as we've known of exchange or switching of souls. This is more of the person's individual consciousness coming into their body,
Mm.
um, which sort of gives them the next leg up in their own evolution. So it can bring back gifts and abilities, memories, things like that. And for the last month, what I've been talking about is the rollout of Soul Mission 2.0. So people are,
Yeah. Tell us about that. Tell us about that.
yeah, that's been fun. That's been really fun. It shows as a person's individual soul star. So if people aren't familiar with the soul star, it kind of resides just slightly above the head. And in that, I've been seeing a lot of very specific sacred geometry to the individual soul. So it incorporates many lifetimes of what they have mastered through their soul's journey, um, and that's starting to come online as part of what they're truly here to represent or to do or to be as a part of this shift in consciousness. I believe that so many of us come in, perhaps at a young age, having this knowing, whether it's vague or um, high definition, knowing that I'm here to be a change maker. I'm here to do certain things. And I think a lot of us have dealt with the frustration of like, it doesn't quite compute in the physical world of what we believe or know on a soul level that we're here to accomplish. But what I'm being shown now is that we're incorporating that frequency within us that is starting to then actualize in the material world,
Yeah. Yeah.
that people are really stepping into what they've come here for.
That's beautiful. And I notice, maybe a corollary to that, likewise, that people are I see it as people gaining access to as well, like past life wisdom, past life capacity, like all the gifts that we didn't come here just like to walk through one form. We've come through, we all know this. People watching this know this. We've come through many incarnations, embodiments, and other experiences. And it's like and I like what you've shared because it's sort of corroborating my observations as well. Like we're able to access the wellspring of wisdom and also loving energy and intelligence that comes to us from so many realms, and as you say, with the galactic realm and all of this, like we're waking up. I guess this is another way to say it, but at that making of meaning of the soul's journey is becoming more clear and conscious, I think, to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I feel like there's always like this, there's a river of thematically related content coming through a lot of yeah, people's sessions with me. So I always love chatting with other light workers, and it's so, you know, yeah, everybody here who's watching, we have you know, you wouldn't be watching this kind of content if you weren't here to embody higher light. And sometimes people come to me and want to know what their mission or their purpose is, and it can be pretty refined and pragmatic, but a lot of it is anchoring that higher frequency for the planet. And we can do that in so many ways, which is beautiful. It's unique to each individual. So yeah, thanks for
Mm.
speaking of that. And I'm gonna
I have
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
two things before we move on. The
Yeah,
first
yeah.
thing
Yeah.
is I want to speak to like what you just said about anchoring light. But
Mhm.
before we do, what patterns have you seen? Have you seen anything that has been a regular occurrence in themes throughout individual?
You know, I know this is just like kind of in the past. I feel like there's a lot of previously I think you and I talked about clearing Atlantean energies, and now it's like bringing in that people are waking up to the lighter side of Atlantis. A lot of times we remember Atlantis as like this, you know, like shitstorm, excuse my language, but like, oh, that yucky thing back there. But actually there's a lot of wisdom and capacity resource we can gather and beautiful light from Atlantis. And as well, that Lemurian energy that rises up from below, I see it as a watery energy that often connects to the sacral center and our the pleasures of being human and being in a unified field of consciousness rather than in separation consciousness. So some of that floats through, and also I would say the stepping away from the denser energies. People seem to be unbinding, like you said, at a more there's just an ease in the unbinding. It's not so much there's not so much strife, or there's easier, I want to say, what is it? Easier passage. I feel like language wanting to come through to talk about that. Yeah, so anyway, there's a lot there. Yeah, and people seeking out the higher, a lot of times, you know, over the years, of course, people come in to talk about trauma and difficult experiences, and that's always going to be the case here in human form because we're living in such a dense reality, or have been, right? So, but there's also this reaching toward the higher light, the higher potentiality that everyone has, you know, uniquely and individually as well as collectively. So that was a long riff on whatever it was you asked me. Thank you, Alicia.
No,
Yeah.
it's just sparked so much because, you know, when I was talking about these cords or plugs that are coming out of people's experience, that was part of the data or information that was coming through was that this is connected to all timelines of our experience in this lifetime. It can overlay into, and often it does, it has overlays into other incarnations, but it is related to more of the heavier, denser traumas that we've endured being here as part of the like soul mission, our first soul mission, which was to bring light to break the chains of in slavery and
Yeah.
being kind of inwoven or enmeshed in like entrapment in our own,
Yeah.
you know, experience of being held in a denser place compared to the light of our soul. And so I often speak to when people used to or have come to me in the past and said, you know, what's my soul mission? And I'm sure you can speak to this too. It's like sometimes just being here is
That
is
is the
enough.
mission. That's so
Yeah,
enough.
yeah,
But look at what we're living through on a day-to-day basis. Is there anybody out there who's not got a lot of shit hitting the fan? I mean, excuse me, but you know, we're all kind of going through quite a lot. Anyway, yes, 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 yes. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. So I think now as we're sort of moving into a lighter bandwidth of experiencing reality, this is the more fun and playful time where we get to kind of work with the skills that we've mastered, whether it's been in up until this point now, because I know that many people have been hugely invested in trying to understand their gifts and abilities and being able to work with them,
Yeah.
and then bring that into some sort of you know project or business or working with that to somehow better humanity. And I think that when we're working with our creative skills and abilities, everyone has creativity. I think that's a unique part of being human, you know,
Mm.
is the way that we can work with higher consciousness through creative skill sets, that is what also brings highlight down into the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Oh, this is rich. I mean, we could just riff on this all day long. I'm gonna go back. We're gonna get a little
Yeah.
more specific to Alicia. So I wanted to ask you, I'd gone back and kind of reflected on some of what we talked about last time, and you'd mentioned around, I think it was age 5 or 6, that you were having a lot of abductions at that point. Could you say more about that, or if you know the players, or if you have particular memories around that? Is it? Yeah.
Mm. Without getting
Yeah.
too incriminating. um, it's interesting because when I look at the key, not so much my parents, but parents of friends, people that I was raised around, there was interesting involvement of people who were sort of aerospace engineers, people who worked for sort of corporations of reverse engineering technology. And when I look at some of the caregivers in my environment at that age, it's
Mm.
interesting. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, no, go ahead. I want to, yeah,
Yeah.
listen to what you had to say there.
But yeah, I think around that age, I don't have a lot of, well, I do have memories. I don't have a lot that I tend to dive into. Um, it did definitely feel like as I started to recover a lot of memory of being in underground bases, I do believe that there was a lot of um, grey, specifically
Mm,
the abductions were by the Greys, which did carry over into my adult life up until only a couple of years ago. I was still having experiences where I was having abductions, um, sleep paralysis, but things that I was, you know, having more experience of being able to, you know, disentangle from in the moment. But as a child,
yeah.
I didn't have that sort of capacity, and I do believe that a lot of the grey beings that were abducting me at that age were probably more military. Uh, I'm trying to think of the word, not necessarily greys themselves, but
Mm.
it was run by military operations.
Yeah, yeah, working in collusion with the military. Oh, that's interesting. And do you have a sense that you were always being taken to the same place, or do you, as far as the sort of, if we go linear for a moment with this, do you have was there a repeat theme there to location and what was happening to you?
Yeah, location wise, I honestly couldn't
Yeah.
pinpoint. Yeah, like I can see visuals of facilities and rooms and a lot of experiments being made.
Hmm.
At that time, I felt very, very ill. I had like chronic illnesses, um, especially around like throat, ear, um, sinus, a
Mm.
lot of issues that went into my 20s and 30s.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, just um, overall, just yeah, a lot of testing. But from, a lot of people say, "Oh my God, you were abducted as a child." I was like, "Well, this is through technology. This is not being, pulled into a van." Just to clarify that those who aren't as familiar with these types of technologies, as I've recently had conversations with people trying to explain to them, they have a different take on it. But from a physical level, from this human life experience, during those ages, I was often waking up in the middle of the night outside my house. So I would be kind of taken back, but not placed back into my bed. So sleepwalking was a thing of a nightly occurrence. My parents would see me
Hmm.
before they went to bed. I would often they'd put me to sleep, And then about an hour or two later, I would walk down the hallway down the stairs, eyes wide open, and I would start to interact with them. And they thought it took them a while to realize that I was, well, sleepwalking. Um, and so, yeah, this went on for years on a nightly occurrence. So often I would wake up, sometimes in my neighbor's house, sometimes I'd wake up, yeah, all
Mm.
sorts of places, or I'd wake up back in my bed and things had been rearranged in the room,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
being sopping wet, things like that. So yeah, there was definitely
Yeah.
um,
And that can be so hard to, I mean, make meaning of as a child. Like how do we even understand that? Or, it can also make us very dissociated from this earthly reality because we're kind of between worlds as that's going on. Which is, I mean, is that a correct way to say that? Would you describe it that way, between worlds?
yeah, I
Yeah.
would say so for sure. I think there was a lot that was done to my psyche and to my
Mhm.
consciousness at that point because I became, yeah, quite dissociative. Um, and yeah, those were hard years. It was often because I then started to tap into not fully understanding. I was
Mhm.
tapping into aspects of where my consciousness was operating at that time, or connections that were made through trauma bonding. And then that obviously carried through for many, many years.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for saying that. That's a tender place for sure for, well, both of us. So I want to chat a little bit more about the grays. This is a topic that many people will be interested in and relate with. Do you remember particular individuals grays that you had interaction with or any particularly vivid experience that you can share with us?
Not from childhood. That I mean, I was very aware that it was happening on an almost on a nightly occurrence. So I would go to bed feeling terrified, frozen in fear, knowing that I just had this knowing that when everyone went to sleep in my household, that I was then taken out of the window and taken to some a different facility.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but as I got older and became more conscious of the um, the abductions and also the positive contact. So, it came through the, when I started to come into conscious awareness that, these things were going on. I had the benevolent and, I had both sides sort of
Yeah.
coming into
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um,
um,
Thank you. There's two places I want to go there. So the first one is we'll go into the grays a little bit more here. So you said maybe not so much as a child remembering a lot of detail as far as like individuals or individual experiences, but that maybe indicated that there was something later. Is there something more detailed that you want to share about later encounters?
yeah, I think probably over the last 6 to 7, maybe, yeah, 6 to 7 years. Um, and funnily enough, it happened back when I had moved back living in my family home. So that's where it happened when I was a child and I didn't have any experience. And then when I moved back there for a period of time, that was when the abductions started happening in adulthood. So um,
Oh,
it
okay.
often
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
it often happens through sleep paralysis is
Hmm.
the first thing of not being able to move, speak sort of frozen.
Yeah.
And then I would feel this being pulled out of my body. And then I would notice that there would be a ship just above the top of my house, and
Hmm.
then being taken up on board craft. So
Hmm.
the two experiences that I have clear recollection of over the last few years was the Zetas. Yeah,
Hmm.
Zetas.
Hmm. Wow.
Um, and it was at that time, I feel their interest in me is because, from my understanding, they lost the ability to procreate. They became sort of an infertile race, and
Yeah.
the curiosity with looking into to me or wanting to experiment on me is to understand the process of light conception and the
Yeah.
process of being able to
Hmm.
bring forth evolved souls. And so in some ways trying to understand and replicate that as a part of,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you so brilliant how you said that, like the interested in the process of human conception, because so many people that I've seen as clients, like they had, oh, how I read through the body and the energy system, like getting down in the female womb and like, oh, you've had some issues with the reproductive center and how have you, breeding program stuff comes up. And a lot of times people don't quite understand the why of that. But the Greys have such a history of, I mean, they've been experimented on by others. They've experimented on themselves and their DNA is like they're degenerate because of all of this DNA manipulation that's come from various sources. And there's different races of Greys. We clarified that last time. However, you've nailed something really beautifully that is really important to the trajectory of the Greys in our solar system. And I too have felt like I think I may have mentioned this last time, that a lot of that seems like it's been on the wane for a while. I don't know if that's still I don't think that that's really a thing that's happening, at least in our linear reality, as much as it was. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's on the out. But thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you've said
Mm.
that well. And well, do I hear you say that this was going on until a few years back? Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that I had a couple of encounters 2017, 2017, 2018. And then even in 2022, I was still having a few experiences that has stopped now. And from my understanding, just generally, I don't think that a lot of the hybrid breeding programs and the testing that did
Yeah.
happen heavily, so many women, I don't really, I can see the remnant, like I can
Yeah,
see
exactly.
when to
Yeah.
me, I can see I can see in the energy field that that has been a part of their experience, but it's not. What comes through is it's inactive, it's
Yep. Yeah.
residual.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I mean, that's very good news. Um, so let's thank you on the Grays. Is there anything else you want to add about the Grays for the moment?
Yeah, I think it comes in waves for me. And I remember when we connected earlier in the year, I was unpacking so much SSP information. It was just like a constant stream of intel, like on a daily basis. And then, as you probably are aware, there's certain times throughout the year where it's like on tap, and then it just it sort of closes up.
Mm,
And I do believe even with I and this may be contrary to what people believe or this may rattle some belief systems, but I truly believe that any type of abduction, there has been some sort of level of an agreement that
yes.
has been made.
Mhm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't believe that there's any sort of uh, I don't believe that, yes, of course, on a human level, we can feel violated or that we
Yeah.
haven't consented, but I believe on a soul level, we absolutely agreed to having these experiments.
Yeah.
And a lot of it can be that we do have aspects of ourselves that are part of the grays and that we're invested in trying to
Mhm.
help their society evolve out of the mess that they got into because of what has happened throughout our galactic heritage. And so I do believe that I do know a lot of people who have been involved in the programs because of contracts that were signed by parents that kind of got them into the programs because of their relation with the Greys. But when you look at it from a soul level, I do believe that their parents or whoever was the person that sold them into the programs
Mhm.
is operating at a higher level. And there isn't like a duo or an agreement to try and help support breaking free of other races that have been also part of like an enslaved or trapped society to some degree.
Mhm. Yeah, that's as well articulated as Yeah, as you've spoken it. Thank you. Yeah, well, in my case, it was like, oh yeah, well, like my father's interactions, his involvement with the Greys, his history with the Greys, and then kind of handing me over in a way to military government and regressive forces, if you will. But back to you. Thank you for yeah, these bits and pieces that are really connecting some dots for, I think, for people in the audience. When I looked at some of the comments feed from your last video, there was so many light bulbs going on for people as they could see through the comments thread. So thanks everybody for being out there watching. Now we're gonna go back into the lighter side because we mentioned at the beginning yes, I've had the negatives or the regressives interacting with me from childhood, but also the benevolent light forces. What do you recall from childhood with that, if anything? Like, what is your recollection? What is your that's probably we get to a whole video just on that, but yeah, what do you want to say to that?
I think that there was so much joyful experiences from very young. Like a lot, I was taken out of my body as a young child, so I'd have a lot of out of body experiences. Um, I was taken off planet. I was looking down on Earth. I was kind of being reminded or briefed of like, you have this important, you have this important role that you have to, that you've signed up to fulfill. But there was also, I had a lot of bleed through of past life trauma that was coming through around the age of 3. And that was watching planets explode and having this fear of like, oh my God, what if that happens again? What if I'm the last inhabitant on the planet and it fails? As I've gotten older, I've unpacked that to realize that that was a previous trauma that was held in um, what I brought through. But from the lighter side of things, things were quite magical as a child. Like
Mm.
I was always being able to converse with spirits. I was always having experiences where I would have, family members or beings that were I was interacting with from a young age, um, and that just sort of carried through. As I got into my teens, I was actively pursuing wanting to enhance the abilities that I already had to work with them because I felt like that was the school system kind of broke me. I realized like I felt like I wasn't good at anything because
Mm.
everyone was good grades in maths or science, or I was completely illiterate as a child. I couldn't spell. I lost a whole chunk of my development years because of illness, and being partially deaf as a child. So I find it fascinating that whatever what do I call it? I believe that whatever our skill set is or whatever we're here to master to teach is something that we have to overcome our obstacles and challenges. So the challenge to triumph in our skill set and ability. But I do believe that I've had a lot of benevolent support throughout my life. Every time I would get to an important juncture in my life, of a pivotal, like making a choice to go down a certain path and to pursue my soul path, I would always be greeted with light beings that would come and they would guide me. And often it would be an out of body experience where I was taken out into the ethers and shown my life's path, being shown my blueprint,
Mhm.
and really comforting because in the human we can be like, oh my God, am I going the right way? Am I doing the right thing? Is this,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and every time I got to that point of like over mental stimulation, I would always have a being that would step in, which I truly believe is an aspect of myself,
Yeah.
coming to comfort me and guide me and say, like, and one experience that I had was around 2008, where this woman appeared, this very etheric white being appeared to me. So I'd be laying in bed and I would hear this, like, I don't know if you can relate to this, Rebecca, but every time I'm about to go out of body, it's like this sound. And then all of a sudden I like kind of pop out of my body and I can,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
this with beings. And so I was taken out of this woman appeared to me and she said, come with me. I need to show you something.
Mm.
And she took me and showed me my life's blueprint, almost like a blueprint or a map.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I was being shown the pathway of my life, and that I was shown that it didn't matter if we went a perceived wrong way, that
Yes.
we would always redirect ourselves back onto the path.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
or even if we went the short way or the long way, we would always get to our destination. We would always be rerouted back to where we meant to be, which was hugely comforting at that time.
Yeah. And it brings us back to, like you said, our human mind is all of, in a kerfuffle about so many things, but is there really wrong path? Like even in death, there's so much transformation that's going on. There's so much experience we're gaining, and there's no I don't know, is there really an eternal fuck up here? Like that we're on the path and we're doing what we're meant to do here. And I think it's a call back into a lot of self-gentleness and to care for ourselves. And we've been trained so much to be hard on ourselves and to feel like we're lost. And there's only one shot at this or that or the other, when in fact, and my guides talked to me about this, about like there's so many choices at every breath, at every moment. There's a reroute, there's another option, there's another place. Can you see that? It's not this one linear thing and this black and white option, and that's all we have. And that's it. There's so much expansiveness to the whole human experience. So I don't know, just something you said really opened that awareness up for me again. Yeah. Um,
Do you often get information about certain choice points? That comes up quite a lot for me, or in client sessions, is that we can have the opportunity or a choice point to move down a certain pathway, and we can make the move in that moment, or we can wait till the next, like if we don't make that decision, it will come back around again at a later
yes,
time. So
yes,
we
yeah,
don't miss the boat. It
yeah.
just can, we prolong or delay
Yeah,
potentially, depending.
yeah, yeah. Yes, very much so. And this is, yes, it comes through client sessions as well, maybe in different language, but very similar. And I think those messages are, you know, they're soothing. When we receive messages from whether we regard higher self or other beings that we work with or beings that we've been, or, and so on. Speaking in linear terms, it's always hard to encapsulate these things in just 3D English language, but um, the messages they deliver so much peace and soothing and spaciousness to our, sort of disheveled human heart and mind. Yeah. Well, so also, I woke up this morning and I had this big grin on my face and I went, oh, I'm free. And I was like, oh, I've just been on a ship. I was on a ship last night, and I don't have super strong recollection. There's like these wispy tendrils of energetic memory that I have, but I think that that's something that goes on for you as well. I mean, like we're in the here and now with these benevolent experiences that I've been released from the programs. That's over. It's over and done. And happily, I'm helping others who have been in the programs and far beyond. But that's also part of my life too, is having a direct link to experientially remember the higher realms, which are not separate. They're part of us. They're living consciousness that's permeating everything that's going on for us. So, I mean, that was a long way of saying, I wanted to ask you a question about like, so what is your current interactions with the benevolent realms? I know you've spoken to the guidance that comes in, but um, yeah.
Thank you. I love the fact that we both had an experience last night prior to recording this, that we were both taken on ship.
I wondered about
Um,
that. Yeah. So say more. Say more, would you? Mm.
it comes in different ways, and I definitely felt that the texture or the flavor of last night's experience on ship was different to what is usual for me. Um, but often, yeah, so this still happens, what I would say, on a regular basis. And when I say regular basis, I mean initially when I got I came into the awareness that this has probably been happening my entire life, just without conscious recognition of it. When I first came into awareness of it, it was happening quite regularly. Like I would say, you know, a couple of times a week for an extended period of time throughout 1 year. And then it started to slow and fade. Now I would say it would happen a couple of times a year. Um, and I believe that the reason now why I have these experiences of being taken on board craft is more around the New Earth children and being attuned to the frequency of being able to bring through highly evolved souls. And so I think there's a lot of attunement and adjustment that takes place within my physical body that is required, that can only really be done on the ships. I believe that a lot of people, a lot of women especially, who are going through this process right now, can't necessarily depend or rely on the medical system that we have down here to go through this process.
Yeah.
These children are outside the frequency bandwidth of what would be detected in mainstream medical equipment. Therefore, the monitoring of these more evolutionary style pregnancies is done on board craft.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That is well pointed out, Alicia, that beings of light are not always well detected by modern instruments. Modern instruments. Yeah, so we could really talk about that for a long time. Thank you for sharing about that. That's really fascinating to me. Yeah, like the why of the benevolent engagements and going up on a ship. I mean, like for myself, I I've had the relationship with who I call the Light Alliance or Galactic Confederation more formally, which I don't like to get into all of that terminology, but and I know that that's part of where I go, and it's enhancing for me. It's like being home with family or so. Anyway, oh, you just had something there.
whoa,
What just happened? Yeah.
just as you were saying that, like I was just like tuning into the energy as you're speaking about it, and it felt like a briefing.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know if you have those,
Yeah.
or if you had those briefing type
Mhm.
experience on
I
board
do.
craft.
I never talk about that. It's just like I'm not, yeah. But yes, that does go on, and it is a Syrian ship, and hence we have Sirius Blue as
Sorry.
people ever wonder why, that's the other name of that's kind of my name. Yeah, there's that. Um, yeah, but a lot of times my interactions there are not they're through conscious waking hours too, in which I'm directly relating through telepathic means and so on with the beings I love, and that ship. So yeah, let's pause in these nice energies that are coming through. Yeah, can you guys feel that? Um, yeah, so I need to ground here for a moment as I'm like starting to go somewhere else. Um, I need to get into my notes, or otherwise I'm just gonna disappear here.
Yeah, there's such a big energy when we do the, I don't know about you, but I heard this interview's been like instructive because I feel like quite like, especially after having the experience last night, I actually feel very neither here nor there. Like I feel very still out of my body, still trying to come back, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well. So viewers, you might be getting a little bit of higher energy during the segment as we're talking about this, because I think we had some parallel, because we would be meeting today, perhaps a parallel experience last night, or um, gathering in
But a couple of things come to mind because I often know when I'm about to have an experience of being taken on board craft because I will hear telepathically, you need to go to bed right now. And
oh, mm,
generally it happens at night, but sometimes it can happen quite early in the evening. And when I'm
that's
told
funny.
telepathically,
Yeah, sometimes I message you and I'm like, gosh, she's in bed really early because like 6 o'clock, and Alicia's in bed. Anyway, sorry. Oh, that's really interesting. So Oh gosh, thank you. I know we're getting off on a quite a tangent here.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful one. I mean, this is, I know people in the audience can relate to all of this. So it's poignant, you know, it's a thing. I mean, how many people out there before they found all this kind of content on YouTube or elsewhere, Rumble and so on, like thought, am I crazy? Did I go somewhere? RET's real? Is this a thing? How's my consciousness? Am I losing my grip on this reality? And so on and so on and so on, you know, like, okay. So maybe it's comforting to people. I'd love to hear others' experiences in the chat feed, you know, about in whether it was through regressive or, you know, we're talking here about high level upper dimensional energies that come from the unified field of consciousness, which is well above 5D, and a very loving embrace from all these energies. So I'm glad it actually, we just got like wafted in with all this high energy. Um, yeah, I'm having a little trouble focusing. I do want to bring this. Do I want to bring this to this other place? I wanted to go into SSP stuff a little bit more. So let's just say that's the ground of light through which we're gonna, you know, kind of travel through this little gateway. And I'm going to ask you a little bit about Mars. Would that be okay with you?
Mhm. Yeah.
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 So, and I know other people have questions about this. You had mentioned in our last chat, like, and I want to hold some light around this, and that's maybe why we just went through what we did. That you, excuse me for being blunt, would witness your counterpart being in a war over and over. And I'm wondering if that was on repeat or if that was different scenarios. What is your impression? I just wanted to get a little bit more context about that piece. Sorry, I just kind of pushed us off the deep end there, but can you speak to that?
Yeah. Um, if I go back into those pockets of memory, because that was the first kind of revealing of memory in real time for me. And it was
Yeah.
quite jarring because from my human perspective, that's not something that I'm sort of focused on. And,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
took me a little bit. And it was, they were quite traumatic memories in the sense that um, it was witnessing, yeah, his death. Um, there's a couple of memories that I have that are
Mm.
separate, so I don't think it was necessarily off. Yes, some of the memories do loop and it kind of replays over and over,
Yeah.
but there were separate occurrences that I saw different scenarios,
Okay. Thank you. And I know, yeah, this is yeah, can be emotional. I know when I talk about the twinning things on interviews, sometimes it's a little, you know, it's tough. Like these things are really, they're hard because it's weds back. And of course, this is part of the programming. They want it to be wed with our heart and our love for this person. So thank you for sharing about that. Do you have a sense of the battle? Who was being fought on Mars? What is the battle about? Do you understand that?
I don't, I never really gone into
Okay.
context around it. I know,
Mhm.
I talked about the gigantic spider beings,
Okay.
which were always, did you ever come across?
Oh yeah, I was killed by a spider on Mars. Yeah. Yeah, and my clone was, and I remember my consciousness kind of going, I don't know, I felt my body expiring, right? But my consciousness was like, there was this very poignant moment of like, I don't know where I'm going. Where do I go? And it was sorted out, but it was like, it was sort of this really sad moment of like face down in the sand. And I know that my body's the technology and the biology are done. You know, I'm out. But yeah, it was
I'm
a little
glad that
sad. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because I think for me it was not necessarily understanding the details of why there was battle war going on.
Hmm.
Um, but my role was as kind of like one that was overseeing some of the missions is when I would see the counterpart go into these battles and to have his clone die in those battles, my my role was to help bring the consciousness back
Oh,
to
hmm, hmm,
and so I think that's where I kind of came in to witness it and then to be able to I think that's predominantly my abilities is to work as a master energy healer and
hmm.
to start to weave the consciousness back into um, the original vessel. And so each time witnessing that and having more of his own consciousness coming back, um, and also watching it happen in real time too, of how that was impacting the human experience was quite interesting. So
Mm. So you insist, and this is also, I think, powerful as a, education at a deeper level about like, so why would I end up in these programs and why was I on Mars? But maybe it's also from a lighter perspective, taking back information about what was going on there and what was I doing psychically, what was happening with consciousness, and how can I bring that to the people that I work with now? Like that's a massive, I would say that's a gift. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that. Um, a backhand
that's
one, a backhand gift to be sure, but there's something to that because you bring a lot of awareness and learning and mastery from that you were doing on Mars. So
I
um
think that in some ways not great to go through that. I mean,
yeah,
at the time it was very confusing, but in hindsight, I can go, okay, well, then my work took such a dramatic shift in more people coming to me who had been involved in the SSP and specifically applying the tools that I was witnessing
yeah,
doing there and helping people down here who were going through um,
mm,
coming back, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot to that, I think, and it occurs to me at the moment, like maybe we both have a, I don't know, maybe we call it a gift or a blessing in disguise at first that we both are helping people who've been in the program. So and well beyond that. So
Mm.
I just suddenly had this little moment of like, oh, I could be thankful for that. That there's a benefit on the other side of all of this that we have, survived through that. And then, like I said at the beginning, we're able to like I was able to come back into my psychic capacity and to do what I do now and to be um so much better off and able to help others and offer some kind of light to the collective. Um, yeah, after everything. So um, something you said in the last video, the last interview, I think it was around the twinning process is not limited to one quantum entanglement or connection. What do you have to say about that? And I think that's a direct Alicia Brache quote. Yes, we were talking about like there can be like more. Is that like being twinned to more than one other, or yeah, say more.
Mm. Yeah, I think the way that I understand it now, I mean, initially I was seeing it in direct relation to two people who share almost identical soul signature or frequency.
Mhm.
Um, but as I started to go through this unraveling of my own experience, I realized that this um, this, this process was not limited to just one person.
Mm.
Um, Based off experiences that I've had down here, psychic abilities and gifts, or how do I say this? Yeah, the quantum entanglement that I've experienced repeatedly through connections down here, and then being shown or asked to be shown, is this limited to one or no? It's many, and in I believe that it happens in groups of either 6 to 8 to 12 people.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that there are technologies that are involved in what I call like implants. Some people have like very specific physical implants. Others are what I call frequency chips, so etheric implants, and a lot of them are planted in the brain or in the consciousness that is part of the mind control programs.
Yeah.
Um, and then we can, you can talk about the kill command switch and things like that, that I believe are kind of placed in that from those experiences.
So you said groups of 6 or 8 that are kind of programmed together. Is that right? Through, yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting because my unit on Mars, as I recall it, was around 7, usually 7 of us together, like on a recon mission or something. Yeah. Did that. Yeah. Yeah, something to that. And so for you, kill command switch, cloning, divergent path here. So do you you were cloned on Mars. Is that, were you there in recall cloning, or you had mentioned something about having some detailed information about the cloning process, or one of the cloning, the ways that beings are cloned. Um, so were you yourself actually cloned on Mars, working on Mars? Is that
I've always asked this question because as I said to you, I've remote viewed other people and seen, but I've never really seen myself.
okay?
And I've always asked that question, was I? And the answer that I've always got back is no, that
Okay.
my consciousness had been fractaled into
Okay.
many different
Okay.
versions of myself. I mean,
Hmm.
small details. It's one and the same process. Well, it's not. It's a very different process, but it's
Well,
I feel
it can be important, I think, to for people who are connecting dots about their experiences. Like we do get into the nuts and bolts, so that's kind of why I was going in that direction. But what is, because kill command switches come up in my language about my describing my own Mars experiences, because I had an alter that it was like they would turn on the program, and that fighter aspect, the killer, to be really blunt, use like really clear, direct language, that would turn on. And that was how my twin Dean, he was activated, and he eventually killed me as part of the twinning program, which is really intense. Um, Throwing us off the deep end there, and that's like a tender place for me. But we were both clones at the time, but yet the loss was very significant, and the grief and the tragedy, the betrayal inside of that was all part of the programming. So that's written into a lot of the twinning program. I mean, point blank, if you look at the Illuminati playbook for twinning, you will find that one twin is often forced to kill the other. But my point was not to go into that sort of darker vein, but that just the part about the kill command switch, I want to, that was a long riff. Getting us back to that. What do you know about that? What context is that coming up through your memory experience?
coming towards the end of my exit from the programs. I was being given a lot of intuitive information that was guiding me to, I guess, unplug myself or to be able to pull out very this to even put words to it out loud. And so this was happening on a daily basis of I would be hyper focused on one portion of something that had to be cleared up within my own energetic field, or more so within my own consciousness. And the highlighting was around the kill command switch. So how I was shown, it was like what I call a frequency chip that was placed in two individuals or more,
Mm-hmm.
um, that shows up almost like a red flashing light.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what was placed in as part of the programs that would then um, almost transmit a telepathic message to orders to be able to, whether it to be to harm, to kill. Um, and what I was being guided to work with was how to disable it, disarm it, so
Okay.
that yeah, purely because it was actually playing out in my reality down here as well. So there's kind of this multi-level layer of
Mm.
things that were occurring or had been occurring off planet, especially on Mars, that was also impacting my reality down here and my connections and relationships. So I think that's where it kind of was forced or highlighted into. Um, I knew when it was set off in my consciousness, and this is something that I had lived through for many, many years through my connections, that there would be some people would call it like interference, but it was like anytime there was something that was important that was going to play out in my life, there was like this thing that went off inside my consciousness that was directly related to the twinning, the twin or one of
Mm.
the counterparts,
Mm.
that would kind of disrupt this reality, and it would be like a hyper focus of yeah, almost like an altar that would switch on. That's probably the best way to describe it. An altar being switched on that would go into violent rage, and wanting to be very, very self-destructive towards harm to myself or directly to the other. And I had observed this playing out over many years. And
Mhm.
I guess I just wanted to get to the bottom of it. I was like, I don't want this to impact my world anymore. So that was when I kind of went on this witch hunt, if you like, of
Yeah.
how do I dismantle this? How do I disarm this? And then through my experience of being able to do that, how can I do that for other people?
Yeah, well said. Wow, that's intense. So this was like bleed through in this reality with your relationships and so on, and you are able to diffuse it. Is that right? Yeah.
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 I yeah, just to give some context around it, it's almost like a beeper from like a ticking time bomb. You know, when you see in the movies where the
Mhm.
light that's how it presents in the energetics, in the consciousness. It's kind of this flashing light that will kind of be switched on at various times, and it will directly, yeah, direct orders, I guess.
Mhm. Oh gosh. This is really similar, something we share, although I don't know that I'd had the bleed through in this lifetime reality. But some people out there might be asking this question of why would they do this to women?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's I don't even know how to answer that. Why would they do this to women
Mm.
in terms
Sometimes
of like the
people ask me, so why would they not focus on why do they make women into warriors and soldiers and killers? What is
mm,
what's the paradigm they're moving toward there? Yeah. Yeah.
that I don't even know if I could answer it. I mean,
Mhm.
what comes through to me when you ask that question is why would they use twins? I can speak to that
Yeah,
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of women tend to have more pronounced or heightened intuitive abilities or more attuned to the etheric realm.
Yeah.
Um, to use twins or counterparts or those, and going back to what I was speaking to before, in groups of like 6 to 8, I think that's I how I understand soul groups to be constructed in the monad is there's 6 male, 6 female, and this can be in other, groups of 4 and 4, and it's those that have the most alike in frequency to each other. And I do think that there is an I I truly believe that there's an overlay of why or how people are selected to go into the programs based off their soul group, um, and the quantum entanglement that they naturally have on a soul level that makes them desirable because of their wedded abilities to be able to feel, sense, and see one another. So
Yeah.
when we're talking about why would they use twin souls in the programs, it's because of the bond of the love that they share
Yeah.
and the heightened ability that they have when they're in their full power, when they come together, how they activate one another to switch on their abilities and gifts. They become like superhuman. And I've experienced this down here and through so many people that are watching this who are on that pathway that can relate that when you're in conscious connection with a twin soul or someone who shares a similar resonance or frequency, you become unstoppable. You
Mhm.
become, um, and so why would they choose? Because of those abilities. And
Yeah.
if they can come in and from a young age break the psyche or create disharmony, it's almost like it's when I tune into the energetics of it, it's like if you look at the infinity symbol and how that depicts quantum entanglement
Yeah.
of two souls. But if you're looking at that from a multi-layer, almost creates like a flower, if you will, like a lot of different infinity symbols coming together. and sharing that one center point, if that's disrupted and the energy that connects all of them has like distorted overlays, that is like going to keep them in separation. It's going to keep them apart.
Yeah.
It's going to keep
Yeah.
them in conflict. So it's going to create huge asset of weaponized soldiers because they're utilizing the ability and the power. It's like they're inverting the power that
Yeah,
is
they're totally
that.
inverting it. Well, thank you. Well said. Well spoken and well articulated on all of that. I would agree with all that. And um yeah, I think you spoke, we talk about my question regarding like why would they do this with women, because it's a total inversion of our natural inclination to nurture, to love, to shepherd life into the world, create killers out of women. It's a weaponization. It's a weaponization of both men and women, no matter how you cut it up or slice it and look at this under the microscope. It's weaponization of humanity, because we're all here as lovers, bringing this world into the fifth dimension and beyond.
I think to just thank you for sharing that because that kind of that
Mm.
makes a lot of sense. And as you shared that, I remember once in a session when I was seeking your guidance, I was asking like, why,
Mhm.
why, um, and what you had come back, which helped me then reclaim. And that's the beautiful thing of working with a practitioner. If you're working with some memory but not full memory, when you're working with someone else, they can help leverage you into a deeper level of your own understanding.
Yeah.
And I think you said to me that part of a very ancient experience that I had very early on or way back in my soul's journey was that I experienced quite a brutal
Mm.
ritual or killing of my own child. And
Mm.
it was
Mhm.
that experience that I said, never again will I allow this to ever happen, which kind of ignited this drive to want to be a part of the programs to see the dismantling of atrocities that are done to children, especially on this planet.
Yeah. 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 Thank you. Mm. Oh, the topic of the children is so resonant. And I feel that coming up in my sessions in so many different ways and contexts and dimensions, even, bringing us back to like where we began with talking about the children and new souls who want to come in. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful place to kind of land after all of this. And that, all the topics that we've just, move through are not so easy. They're difficult, and there's a lot of convolutions inside of that. It's very quantum in nature as well. And we're getting into the nuts and bolts of the spiritual war against humanity when we talk about the weaponization of, you know, souls in the programs and so on. So think we've covered a lot here today, and I love, do you feel like we just went on a big journey? I think has it only been like an hour and some change, but I don't know what is time. But there's a lot contained herein, and I think bringing it back to the future of our world through talking about the children and the future here is really beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
I think the beautiful thing is that women like myself, women who know that part of their purpose in this lifetime is to bring through these children, and many women going through such varied experiences means that we are on the precipice. But I've always kind of inherently known that until we are able to clean up and expose what has been done to kind of wipe
Yeah.
the slate clean for humanity's sake, these children won't aren't going to incarnate into a dirty cesspool. These children
Well
are.
said, Miss Brache. Yes. Well said. They're not going to, we heard it here first. They're not going to incarnate into a dirty cesspool. Yes.
So I've always said that the tipping point will come when things are exposed to the mainstream, when people realize what has been done to children on this planet, and that will create a segue for these lighter beings to start to incarnate, which has already been happening now, for
Mhm.
at least a decade. But each each year, or yeah, each year, the quotation of light that comes through in these children is incredible.
It's massive. And you know, to help people understand this a little better, I just want to add something too, that even if we don't feel like we're poised to bring in a child, or maybe it happens in a, you know, in a more etheric way, like we can relate with the children. Galactic kids I see, and I said this last time, it's just that it keeps happening, and they're like, I sometimes I'm in meditation in the morning and there's all these galactic kids like around me, and it's so beautiful. They're like laughing, and I don't know. It's a lovely accompaniment. It's almost like a musical song, or something, the music of the cosmos giving birth to itself, you know, around me in meditation. But that we can just relate with them through our consciousness as well, and that is also uplifting something of the rebirth of our world. That's my impression and understanding. And just one iteration of how this is relevant to the shift with these kids that are coming in, and so many ways, different ways, not to limit our minds about what that looks like. Um, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Is there more you want to say on that topic? Or are you, yeah, I mean, I guess it's a really big one. And, you know, like how is our world being made fertile for this, we could call it a rebirthing, and maybe of humanity, and maybe it's what you said in the beginning about, you know, wow, so many people are coming into sessions and they're really shucking stuff, you know, they're removing layers and things. It's like soul mission 2.0, I think was what maybe you said, soul's journey 2.0. Yeah,
Mm, mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
um Anything else? Yeah,
My favorite topics: soul's purpose, soul's mission, the newer children. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I think I so much that I could say about this, but I do think that we are
yeah.
at the times right now where women are defying odds to be able to bring through these children, and I think that's what it's designed to do, to defy medical odds, to prove what is possible from um, higher dimensional living.
Hmm.
And that's exciting because that brings in possibilities that we haven't had before.
Hmm.
And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's no, it's just like well on. Um, yeah, I guess being open to the calling for those who feel that is part of their path. And
Mm.
that was the other thing I've also seen for many years, that when the earth becomes at a certain vibration that can hold a container of space for these children to come in, we can also prepare for a lot of people who have been involved in hybrid programs that do have memory and
Yeah.
connection to their child, who have been raised on board craft, to actually come and integrate here into society. And maybe I'm talking a little ways off, but I do see a world in which there is this kind of multi-race society. And I do think that some of the hybrid children were created specifically to come onto Earth
Mhm.
at a specific time when we're ready, but obviously not quite yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Alicia Brache, thank you for being here today. I mean, so much beauty in our conversation. And as I have said on this channel before, bringing light to the darkness. And certainly you're in good hands with Alicia if you seek some help on the journey for you. You know, you can book a session with either of us, Alicia, cosmicgateway.com. And is it New Earth Children?
Oh,
Dota.org, and those links are below as well to her Telegram and YouTube channels. I'm so excited to have you back, and I know we'll be chatting here again. Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. I feel like we journeyed through some turbulence there, and we had a light activation unexpectedly in the middle of all this. And you know, this is kind of what goes on through sessions too. It's like there's, you know, people come to us for readings and to figure out what's the information that's wanted, but there's so much big energy that is constantly coming through, and I think some people in the audience are really going to be feeling that through watching. So Oh, such big love for you, Alicia, and for everybody making the journey into really being human here right now. Signing off, Rebecca Rose and Alisha Brache, thanks for being here. Oh, my goodness.
Just to mention this briefly, I have a mother and father from a previous lifetime, Indigenous mother and father, and I just call them simply mother and father. They've been with me every day for about 2.5 years. They were my parents from a previous lifetime with the Crow people, and they've helped me heal so much. They've done soul retrieval work for me. They helped me journey to get parts back. And that's actually ongoing. Like even today, I was working with them this morning. And their love is so beautifully unconditional.